For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.
Hello and welcome to the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan, and this evening our focus is on Balochistan. I have a small map here for you. Balochistan is Pakistan's biggest province, sparsely populated, bordering the Arabian Sea. There's been a long simmering insurgency here, and it seems to have taken an uptick in recent weeks with attacks in a place called Ketch. I hope they've got the pronunciation right, where 10 Pakistani soldiers were killed by the Baloch Liberation Army. There have also been attacks in places like Pangjur and Noshki, and more Pakistani soldiers were killed there, around 4. So it appears that the insurgency is taking a new turn. We'll have more from our guest here, Alok Bansal, formerly of the Navy, currently director of the India Foundation, and a specialist on Balochistan. Welcome, sir. Glad to have you.
Thank you.
My first question. What do you make of these attacks? How serious are they from a Pakistani point of view?
See, these are extremely serious because after 2006, there have been no frontal attacks by Baloch insurgents on army strongholds, especially in Nushki and Panjgur. They not only attacked the frontier post district headquarters, but also held on to the post. See, attacking and running away is a different thing, which is an insurgent tactics all over the world. But trying to capture and hold it shows the confidence that the insurgents had in their capabilities, that they could thwart the security forces for over 24 hours, 48 hours, and keep them at bay. So they have not only succeeded in accessing all the weapons and ammunition that was also available. What was even more important was that in these particular attacks, the Baloch insurgents were willing to sacrifice their life. It was to some extent a Fedayeen attack, you can say, where actually the people who were attacking stayed put and fought till the last bullet. So that is a different dimension of the insurgency that we are seeing in Balochistan, and this revival is taking place almost 1.5 decades after Nawab Akbar Khan Mukti was killed in August 2006. And the last major flare-up where the Baloch had targeted a well-protected establishment was in actually 2005 when they had attacked the PPL complex in Sui. So it's after a long back time that we are seeing this sort of a heightened level of insurgency in Balochistan.
Mm-hmm. So can they sustain this? And where is their support coming from?
See, the first issue which we need to understand is that the Baloch alienation with the state of Pakistan is more or less complete. But having said that, Baloch do not have the critical mass to break away from Pakistan. Because please understand, as you said, Balochistan comprises 43% of Pakistan's landmass, but is inhabited by less than 5% of its population. So that itself tells you the problems of Baloch. Their numbers, their absolute numbers are very low. The fact that this is a hyper-arid zone, extremely parched, allows them to sustain the insurgency because Pakistani army cannot live off the land. So they have to depend on long lines of communications. And Baloch tactics has been to target these lines of communications and target those infrastructure which link Balochistan to rest of Pakistan, like railway lines, the road bridges, or electricity pylons which connect the electricity grid, or gas pipelines, which have been their favorite targets. But they don't have the critical mass to break away. So unless, of course, something goes wrong and where the Pakistan army withers away, Balochistan will find it difficult to break away. And consequently, Baloch have always been trying to create a grand alliance of all ethnic minorities against Punjabis. If you look at it, they initially tried to set up a Baloch Sindhi Mahaz, where they tried to bring Sindhis with them. In fact, it is widely believed that Sindhudesh Liberation Army is actually under the protective control of BLA. So all the insurgency activities which were witnessed in last few years in Sindh have been sponsored by them. Nawab Akbar Khan Bukti, after the incident in Sui, had actually made a very, very strong statement against Sindhis, because the lady doctor who was raped in PPL complex in Sui was a Sindhi lady doctor, where he says that Sindhis should have protested more than us, but I don't appeal to dead people. That was a very powerful statement meant to instigate Sindhis. They have been very, very partly successful. They have also been part of Pakistan oppressed nations movement, where they've tried to bring Pakhtuns, Baloch and Sindhis together. So Baloch realized that their only chance of success is if they can garner a coalition of ethnic minorities. Plus, the insurgency has reached a stage where alienation is complete. It has reached a stage where it is looking for an external sponsor of insurgency. They need an external support directly, which they are not getting to that extent, because one of the problems with Baloch insurgency is that it also threatens Iran. And Iranians have always been concerned with an insurgency in Balochistan. In fact, the last major insurgency that happened in Pakistan from 73 to 77, 78, the last Baloch insurgency, the Pakistan's army and air force was actively supported by Iranian air force and troops, because that time it was Shah of Iran who was in power, and he sent an air force detachment to support them. So without that external support, it will be difficult. For a very long period of time, Afghanistan did provide them some support. And there are, of course, reports, the Pakistanis often claim that Indians are supporting. In fact, they say that even during this incidents which have taken place, they have monitored communication between India, Afghanistan, and the Baloch. But I think it looks more a figment of imagination than reality, because of all the 4 provinces of Pakistan, the only province which does not have a contiguous border with India is Balochistan.
Yeah.
So for India, it is practically not feasible to do anything without direct contact with them. But here we also need to understand that there are a large number of Baloch live in UAE and Oman, and especially with Oman, because Gwadar had a historical connection with Oman. And when Gwadar was returned, one of the conditionalities was that the Baloch will be permitted to work in Omani's armed forces. So a large number of Baloch have served in Omani armed forces, and there are still large number of expatriates in these 2 countries, from where a lot of financial support comes, because the Baloch diaspora is been supporting the insurgency to a very great extent. Of course, on the flip side, there are a lot of chinks as far as Baloch armor is concerned, because Baloch ethnicity is not very clearly defined. It's actually a recent construct. When you say who's a Baloch, the Baloch speak 2 different strands of Balochi, coupled with a very large number of people who speak a language called Brahvi. Now, both of them call themselves Baloch, but Brahvi and Balochi are as different as chalk from cheese, because Balochi is an Aryan Persian language, and Brahvi is a Dravidian language akin to Tamil and Gondi. So that's a major difference. Of course, Pashtuns inhabit the northern Balochistan, which is a smaller territory but densely populated. So when we look at provincial composition, there is a very, very significant Pashtun composition. But I'm talking about the people who call themselves Baloch are also not ethno-linguistically homogeneous. But this narrative of Balochistan's persecution by the Pakistani state has been built up to such a level that both Balochi and Brahvi consider themselves as Baloch and are united in their fight against the Pakistani state.
Now, you were mentioning Afghanistan a little while ago. Could it be that the victory of the Taliban in Afghanistan has emboldened the BLA? Is there any connect between them and the Taliban, or perhaps even the TTP?
See, we need to understand that the fall of Kabul on 15th August 2021 has emboldened insurgents across the globe. Because now any ragtag militia feels that if Taliban can defeat the United States of America, we can also deal with any state. So that boost, the psychological boost which all such insurgent outfits have received is enormous. Ideologically, Baloch insurgents are left-leaning secularists. So they have really actually never got along very well with the religious groupings per se. So at best, there can be a tactical alliance with TTP or things like that. Otherwise, a long-term alliance between Baloch nationalists, TTP, or Taliban in Afghanistan has not been the case. In fact, it was the previous regimes which have been providing support to Baloch nationalists. And so they should have been a little more vulnerable with the arrival of Taliban into the scene in Afghanistan, because Taliban has very good connections with the ISI, as you all know.
Yeah, yeah. Do you see any element of radicalization in Balochistan because of all these years of oppression, perhaps the growth of Islamic consciousness, identity?
See, Pakistan, right from 47, has tried to subsume the ethnic identity of people by promoting an all-inclusive Islamic identity.
Yeah.
They successfully tried that in Pakhtunistan, because in 47, 48, the biggest threat to them from Pakhtun nationalism. So as you will realize, from 47, 48, NWFP, they encouraged, and now Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, they encouraged religious political parties and promoted a religious thought. The similar tactics was also tried in Balochistan in 2001, 2002. That was the time when they had an MMA government. But the Baloch, by and large, have rejected this religious dogma which Pakistani state has tried to propagate, barring in the Iranian part, where, because the Baloch insurgency in Iranian part has assumed a sectarian hue, because the Jundullah, which is the predominant group which is fighting in Iranian Balochistan, has a sectarian outlook. But all the Baloch outfits, and when I say all, I mean major. The major outfits and the predominant Baloch outfits are extremely secular. BLA, the Baloch Liberation Army, BRA, Balochistan Republican Army, or BLF, the Balochistan Liberation Front. And now you have an alliance. Of course, there are numerous new outfits come. Most of them are left-leaning secularists. In fact, BLA was very, very close to the communist ideology. In fact, in 70s, the insurgency was actively supported by communists from rest of Pakistan, like people like Tariq Fateh and Najam Malik. All these people who were Punjabis had also joined the Baloch insurgency. Dalip Das, who was a Sindhi Hindu. All these people had joined the Baloch insurgency of the 70s because they were driven by this leftist agenda of communist state.
So, what is the future of this insurgency? If, as you say, the Baloch population is so low, the resources virtually nil, international support severely lacking, where does it go? I mean,
See, I think the Baloch insurgency has reached a stage where it is actively looking for an external sponsor. And there are two things which they are looking for. They are looking for some via media by which Pakistani state's security apparatus crumbles. It could be due to a severe financial crisis, or could be due to a war or conflict with another actor. Like now, if TTP starts targeting Pakistani army and you have a conflict, then they have an opportunity. But their strategy has been to widen the support base of Baloch by creating a united front of all ethnic minorities. They've been trying to bring Sindhis, Pakhtuns, etc. on the same front and confront the Pakistani state. And for that, if you see, the provisional government has been from time to time coming out with statements which target Punjabis. In fact, they had, as early as 2008, they had said that all Punjabi Muslims in our territory are valid targets. They've also tried to take a stance against China to seek support from the West, especially the United States, because they said the Chinese are helping Islamabad to colonize our land. So all Chinese companies and Chinese assets are valid targets for us. So the attempt have been to widen the scope of the conflict, get external actors to support them, get other ethnic minorities to support them. That has been the aim. In fact, even tactically, if you look at it, their targets have been more infrastructural projects and security personnel than any targeting of human beings. So there have been lesser casualties, but more damage in terms of equipment and infrastructure. Their targets have invariably been only security personnel, their collaborators, and Punjabi settlers. These are the three categories of people they have invariably targeted as far as personnel are concerned. But in terms of targeting of infrastructure, they have regularly targeted railway lines, gas pipelines, electricity pylons, which connect grid Balochistan to the rest of the grid, and all those issues.
Mhm. So, Pakistan, a lot of fault lines over there. You mentioned the collaboration between the BLA and the Sindhis. Do you see this taking on a broader, there are Pashtuns also in the northern frontier who are dissatisfied. And a lot of the fighting that the TTP is doing also is in a certain direction. Are these fault lines in Pakistan deepening?
See, there is no doubt about it that Pakistan's fault lines are deepening. In fact, Pakistan's founders, right from the beginning, did not realize that they thought that just by propagating one singular religious identity, they'll be able to subsume the ethnic fault lines, which has not happened. In fact, 71 proved it. And now, subsequently, we are seeing other ethnic fault lines coming into being. So, there are ethnic fault lines. PTM is the clearest manifestation of Pakhtun dissatisfaction with Pakistani state. Now, TTP, unfortunately, is a different ball game because TTP ideologically is a different thing because they talk of pan-Islamism. They are under establishment of an emirate. And pan-Islamism, by definition, does not believe in ethnic fault lines or ethnic divisions. So TTP, to that extent, is not something which would actually find it easy to coexist with Baloch Liberation Army or Baloch Liberation Front, which has an existential, which has an idea of a secular Baloch state, which is an ethnicity-based identity. But yes, with PTM, there could be collusion. But the problem is, historically, in the past, you've had a little division between Pakhtuns and Baloch in Balochistan because both were initially contesting for the same resources, and Baloch feel that they could be marginalized. And as I said, in terms of population, you have a significant Pakhtun population in Balochistan province. Now, when we talk of Baloch and Balochistan, there are, of course, differences. As you say, there are large number of Baloch who live outside Balochistan. In fact, according to reports, there are more Baloch who live outside Balochistan than in Balochistan, because a large number of Sindhis are Baloch. And now, when we talk of Baloch in Sindh, there are 2 or 3 different types of Baloch. One are Sindhi-speaking Baloch. The Baloch tribes who actually lived in Sindh have now amalgamated so much that they speak Sindhi. Then there are Baloch-speaking Baloch tribes. Then there are Baloch tribes in southern Punjab, some in parts of NWFP. So the ethnic identity and the provincial boundaries do not always correlate. Then, more importantly, there is a significant population of Baloch both in Iran and in Afghanistan. So that complicates the issue a little bit, because Baloch have not got that sort of an external support which other insurgents could have got.
I recall many years ago, during, I think, the Bush administration, there was a map which came out showing Balochistan being amalgamated from various territories in Iran, Pakistan, and so on,
that was actually a proposal by a gentleman called Ralph Peters, who was a lieutenant colonel in US Marines, and he came up with an article writing Blood Borders, where he actually said that this entire Muslim world needs to be restructured. He talked of an entire Muslim world being restructured, and he drew that map, which was an interesting map, which had a sovereign Balochistan, of course, and a Shiite Arab state in the southern part of Iran. And of course, he had different Kurdistan and independent Kurdistan and things like that. At some stage, people believed that neocons actually supported that sort of an idea. But neocons have been in decline because with the rise of Trumpism in Republican Party, ideologies in Republican Party has already taken a backseat. So I think there has not been much progress to that extent. However, I do believe that Baloch insurgents have always been in touch with the US intelligence agencies and have received some amount of support from US agencies all through. because there is a congruence of interest as far as Baloch and US are concerned. Because Baloch insurgency prevents Iran's pipeline, Iran-Pakistan pipeline, and US also realizes that the best way of controlling Iran is by creating insurgencies along its periphery, because the regime change will not work. Also, they know that in case the Pakistani states totally goes hostile, they want to have an option open for independent access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Although now Afghanistan is under Taliban rule, but that had been their desire to keep an independent access, and which they feel a sovereign Balochistan could do that.
So, last question. Where does India figure in all this? Do we figure at all? The Pakistanis make various claims and charges. Where do we stand?
See, very difficult to say. It is in India's interest that Pakistan, which is a byproduct of two-nation theory, disintegrates. Because unlike others, I sincerely believe that a Pakistan, which is a construct of two-nation theory, poses an ideological, existential threat to secular India and vice versa. So to that extent, any successor state which does not abide by the divisive two-nation theory is actually a welcome thing. So if you actually create a secular Balochistan, it's a desirable thing, because then you get an independent access to Afghanistan and Central Asia, independent of both Pakistan and Iran, which has a perpetual problem with the United States. So to that extent, we have a definite advantage. It also weakens Pakistan, which has been a constant bugbear as far as India is concerned. And of course, there are a lot of other inherent benefits if actually disintegration of Pakistan does take place into ethnicity-based provinces, because that would actually sound the final death knell of the divisive two-nation theory. It can resolve a lot of issues, because the successor states would look towards India to mediate into their eventual problems. Because unlike in the case of Bangladesh, if there is any further division of Pakistan, there will be a lot of lingering issues about transfer of population, resources, river waters, boundaries, all sorts of things. And this would require invariably an external arbitration, which India could do and could probably strengthen its influence. And also, I have always believed that eventual aim of India should be the establishment of South Asian Economic Union, which eventually leads to some sort of a confederation of South Asia. That is only possible when a state premised on the very antithesis of this, that is the two-nation theory, actually disintegrates, because then successor states would have no ideological baggage to carry as far as integration of the South Asian Union or coming together of the South Asian states is concerned. So I feel that for further integration of South Asia, probably a disintegration of Pakistan, or at least its shunning of the two-nation theory, that divisive ideology, is a must. And I think to that extent, India should have an interest. Whether India is doing anything or not doing anything, I'm in no position to comment, being a simple analyst, because if this would be the case, then that would be in the classified domain. But as one Pakistani analyst once asked me, that if you are not doing something like this, then why are you being angelically stupid? Now, I have no answer to that question.
Very interesting analysis, Alok Bansal. Pleasure talking to you. And I'm sure we'll have more occasion to talk about this subject going forward. Thank you again very much.
Thank you.
And for all of you out there who have been following this conversation, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Keep coming to us with your comments, questions, and observations. Follow us on social media, including Twitter and Instagram. Thank you. Good night.